Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology turned podcast. Everyone, welcome into the program today. I hope that you're doing well and you are ready for the show because, hey, as always, we can't think it's it's not a good Friday unless we have Ralph on. So joining us today is our science and technology trends correspondent, Ralph Bond. And, he'll be joining us here in just a moment to talk about a number of stories, all of which very, very fun. You'll definitely want to stick around for that. And yeah, definitely, everyone, check out the show notes. They're already up on computeramerica.com. And of course, if you're listening to this, either the YouTube video or the podcast, of course, then you can hear it there, read the show notes there as well and follow along. Now, with all that being said, computeramerica.com, it's finally back up and, all that good stuff's been up all week. And ladies and gentlemen, if there's any issues, please feel free to contact us live at computeramerica.com. But, everything should be up there with reviews, show notes, social media links, contests, giveaways, and of course, all of our segments, including those with Ralph. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead, jump right in, bring Ralph in, and just have fun with it. Everyone, welcome back onto the program, Ralph Bond. Ralph, how you been?
Oh, great. It's been hot up here in the Northwest, bizarrely hot for us. We've been like close to 100 degrees, sometimes pushing over a little bit 100 degrees. So we're holding our breath and hoping it starts coming down on Monday. But compared to the rest of the country and people in Texas and so forth, they would just go, please, Ralph, get real. 100 degrees, that's a cold day, buddy.
And this is from someone who grew up in Florida and yes. Currently my fiance lives in Dallas, which has seen 110 degrees every single day. It's every time she gets in her car, it's like 112, 114 degrees inside her car, parked in the shade and stuff like that. But still, with that being said, Ralph, everyone knows, and luckily I've seen a lot of people backing this up. There's a difference between high temperature and high temperature in places that don't have the infrastructure. As in, in Texas,
exactly,
ACs are in like 99% of buildings. Yeah. In the Pacific Northwest, that's not always the case.
That's correct. Yeah. Last June, I think it was, we had the horror. I mean, for us, unbelievably bizarre, 116 degrees in the Portland area and so forth. And I think the news said this morning that about 100 people died from heat. Like you say, we're adjusting this summer. We're ready, much more ready, especially for the homeless folks, getting water out to them and so on and so forth. But anyway, I digress. The heat's a negative. We don't do negative on Friday.
Okay, I one more fun statistic, and then we're going to jump over. But the UK had a heat wave as well here in the last couple of weeks, just for comparison, everyone out there, Ralph, 0.5% of UK homes, and this was a survey back in 2008, so it's a little dated, but not by much. 0.5% of UK homes had some form of built-in air conditioning. So you can imagine in a place with 99.5% of homes don't have AC, the heat wave is a big deal. But everyone, Ralph's right. That's not uplifting, and that is the goal here. So Ralph, why don't you go ahead and explain to the nice folks what your goal is with your segment here on the show every week?
You got it. Here's my canned response to who I am and what I do. So, Ben, of course, I'm an aggregator of science and tech news features I find by monitoring a host of online news outlets, and I look for important and sometimes kind of wild and wacky and out there stories that don't usually capture mainstream press attention. And I'm always on the lookout for news that gives a glimpse into where we're headed in robotics, medical technology, sustainable energy technology, transportation advances, space research, physics, all across the board, you name it. And what I do with each news item is present the essential points and in, I hope, a digestible form. And I stress to our audience, as you did at the outset here, check out computeramerica.com, get the show notes, because the show notes have the script or the talking points we're going to go through today, but more important, it has the links and images and so forth to the original articles so that you can dive as deep into the geeky science behind many of these stories as you want or not.
Right. And yeah, everyone, once again, they're already up there, but yeah, everyone, computeramerica.com. And Ralph, I say we just jump right into story number one, which, longtime listeners of the show should be very familiar. And anyone who's ever touched a computer should be very familiar with this company and, really trying to revolutionize. Well, I mean, Ralph, we've heard stories of like Amazon doing this, but now Intel's also getting in the game. And this is a trend. If you haven't seen it in person, it'll get to you eventually.
Yeah. So the headline here is fully autonomous grocery store offers computerized, no human contact checkout system. And I get the news alerts, of course, from Intel. They send them to me. And this one, I just thought, this is really a fun story on so many ways. I got this right again from the Intel Corporation newsroom, which is a fun location to monitor and keep watching. So you can see, if you have the show notes, you can see the illustration here, but let's just dive into the story. So in February of this year, a super high-tech grocery store in Fayetteville, Georgia, called Nourish Plus Bloom started offering customers a fully autonomous checkout experience powered by computer and digital vision technologies from Intel. So Intel had a hand in working with these folks. And the store is, the brainchild of Jamie and Jillia Hemmings, which you're seeing in the video here that Ben is playing. And this is an interesting part, that they're the first Black entrepreneurs in the world to establish a completely self-operating grocery store. And here's how it works. So first, you download the Nourish Plus Bloom app to your smartphone. This day and age, that's no surprise. And then as you shop, you scan each item. And the super high-tech market has 30 ceiling cameras and shelves with scales that track what customers pick up based on the weight of each item. That's a very interesting. So it's one thing that you've got the scanning codes, you have the cameras, and you have the shelves that are weight sensitive, right? And the technology driving the autonomous market includes Intel Core processor powered computers. And this part was really interesting to me. Intel Real Sense, that's REALSENSE, run together as one word. Intel Real Sense depth perception cameras. I'll digress just for a moment. There's so much more to Intel than just microprocessors. I was with Intel, and Ben knows this, for just about 14 years. And the research and development, Intel's hand was all over USB, for example, in the beginning of that technology. So they're much more than just microprocessors. Yes. And this is a good example of that. But anyway, back to the story. So by the way, the Intel Real Sense technology used in the store is particularly interesting as it offers a range of depth and tracking camera technology. So depth perception and tracking designed to give machines and devices depth perception capabilities, which is, I would love to dig in deeper. I'd love to go to this store in person and experience it. That would be cool. And Real Sense technologies are used in autonomous drones, robots, augmented and virtual reality systems, and smart home devices. So a little bit of kind of a fun segue or a side note business for Intel in this area.
Yeah.
And all together, this technology array offers computer vision, on-site analytics, and advanced freezer and chiller temperature tracking, which is a big deal in the grocery industry. My son-in-law works for New Seasons Markets here in the Northwest. It's a very groovy store chain. And that kind of technology is so important to manage the energy of freezers and chillers, right? Because people are opening the doors of the refrigerated things, and they have to make sure the doors are secure and all these sort of things. This kind of technology would track all that kind of stuff and alert the operators if there's a problem with any of those systems. So here's the deal, though. When you finish shopping, you just walk out the door. No checkout lines, no cashiers, no waiting. The moment you walk out the door, your credit card is charged for your purchases. And so now, not to be Debbie Downer, but let's get real. It's a cool idea. It's a great technology show and tell. But the downside, the obvious downside, and I have to recognize this. If this were to be widely adopted and spread throughout the grocery and big box store industries and so forth, potentially millions of people could lose their jobs. So, but you know what, Ben, let's flip that coin over. We keep hearing all the time in the news these days about the desperate need for workers for these kinds of jobs, the people that are cashiers or other jobs. Obviously, stocking the shelves could someday be done by robots, but still it's mostly human beings. So it's a kind of a mixed bag. On one hand, it's fascinating. It's really groovy. I also think, Ben, that this technology maybe yes or no for a big grocery store or a big box store like a Costco or something like that, maybe. But it sure would be wonderful, though, for little boutique stores in, say, an airport or something like that. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it. Wonder what your thoughts are on this whole thing.
From the video, and the video is very informative. I highly encourage everyone to go check that one out. Ralph, it looks exactly like that. It looks like in a smaller little store where they have maybe 2 or 3 aisles and then a row of fridges. This is not a large store. And Ralph, I mean, I'm assuming that this couple that started this, they're working there full time. Like, you still see the woman there rearranging the shelves, restocking shelves and stuff like that. And Rob, I can imagine that, someone who would run a traditional convenience store without all this automation, you would still need about 2 employees to kind of manage this thing full time. So there's really no loss of jobs here. It's just, pure convenience.
Could be.
When this scales up, though, you're absolutely right. You wouldn't need as many people. I'm always a fan that, you don't keep around, store shelf stockers and baggers and these kind of low menial jobs, because hey, if you free them up, hey, they can do other things, and they can do either other things for the store or other things that they actually want to do. Ralph, I don't think anyone wants to stock shelves. It's a job, it pays the bills, and it's good. There's nothing wrong with it, but no one grows up thinking, I hope I can put box A onto shelf B. That frees us up to do things humans want to do, people want to do. But of course, people also want to pay their bills, so your point's well taken. I also want to just kind of throw one more thing out there and then move on to the next story, but I paused on this screen especially because if you see these little labels here that are kind of updated and kind of takes out, Ralph, we were just talking about saving labor costs. You can imagine how long it would take to kind of change all these things if there's a sale or if there's any kind of stock change and stuff like that. We actually have not too long ago, we had an interview with Canada's largest provider of those kinds of smart screens. They were Danovation. So, and they do exactly that. They do digital smart labels for grocery stores and stuff like that. It's a very small part of, of this whole system that Ralph described with cameras and sensors and weights and apps. But if people want to find out more about what goes into this kind of technology, we have an interview with a company that does that too. So
Ben, are those actually displays? Or they're dynamic, changeable little mini screens?
Yep. They're all e-ink.
That's
and they're
the way to
out,
go.
They're all e-ink. They come out with color. They're fully displayed. Battery lasts a couple years. Very, very cool technology that goes into it.
Smart.
And
very smart.
It's, again, just a small part of this whole story.
Cool.
Intel and their part with the cameras and sensors and the depth, which I think a lot of people maybe don't think is really that big of a deal. But I know RealSense has been a thing since Windows 8 or something like that, for almost 10 years now. The RealSense technology that they're putting out is incredible. So would love to talk to Intel about that as well. But everyone, that's story number 1. Let's go ahead and jump on over to story number 2.
Yeah, story number 2. Of course, I would have done the story regardless, but what I'm referring to is a couple weeks back, Ben, you and I talked about an effort to genetically modify rice so it would absorb more carbon dioxide. This is somewhat related in a way. So the headline here is there's a California startup that's developing genetically modified trees to also help fight climate change. And I got this from, first I picked up on the story at futurism.com. And then I went out to the company's website, livingcarbon.com. And further research led me back to another article at CNET. So there were 3 different kind of sources in a way for this story. So start off with kind of the obvious no duh statement here. We all know that trees play a key role in fighting global warming by absorbing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And many cities and countries, for that matter, around the world are actively encouraging the planting of more trees to help fight climate change. In fact, I could swear I tried to find it, but I thought I saw a little headline about Los Angeles where they were saying the city government was saying we need to get something like, I don't know, 80 or 90,000 more trees somehow planted in the city urban area of Los Angeles to help, absorb more carbon dioxide.
Just real quick, this was back in 2021, so April 2021.
Okay.
And they were talking about 90,000 new trees citywide and increasing forest canopy in low-income areas by 50%.
That's it. Thank you, sir, for getting that, because it was driving me nuts. I knew, and I did a Google and I just couldn't seem to find it, but that's great. So that's a good example of our point here. So, but that's great. But of course, trees take a long time to grow, making the benefits they can offer a long-term proposition. So that's not a quick fix. It's a good investment, but not a quick fix. But what if you could engineer trees that could grow twice as fast as normal?
Wow.
So that's the big drum roll here. San Francisco-based startup Living Carbon, really interesting website, by the way, has developed genetically modified, super fast growing trees, which the company is hoping to plant 4 million of in the United States by 2023. Big goal there. So as noted in the Futurism.com article, the company claims its genetically altered photosynthesis enhanced hybrid poplar tree seedlings can grow about 53% more mass during 5 months of growth than its average unmodified counterpart. So when they talk about mass, they just mean, the size of the tree. And poplar trees, by the way, are fast growing trees in the world of trees to begin with. But if you can jack them up 53%, wow, they're going to go like a weed.
So poplar, indeed, and a weed is a good way to describe them, because here where I live in Asheville in North Carolina, man, these things grow like from season to season. Like it'll be just like a twig, and you like leave it alone because it's like, I don't want to bother pulling that. And then Ralph, by next year, these things already are like a 15-foot tree in like 1 year. They are quick growing. So yeah. So jack them up 53%. Can you imagine? So the other part of this is, so if you have this basically doubling the growth rate of these poplar trees, and the Living Carbon people told CNN in their interview with them that this would be the equivalent of 27% more carbon being removed from the atmosphere per tree. So that's how it's helping with climate change or combating global warming, is just jacking the growth. If you have a bigger, faster growing tree, larger tree, more absorptions, they say about 27% more carbon being removed from the atmosphere per tree. Wow, that's very cool. Yeah.
But reality check, the findings are, as they say, very honestly, proof of concept at this point. So they will need to be proven to hold up over the long term of a tree's life, the growth rate, et cetera, and at a scale large enough to have a significant impact on the climate. And here's where this effort with Living Carbon stands right now today. The Living Carbon team has planted more than 600 photosynthesis enhanced trees as part of a 4-year partnership with Oregon State University. So this has, for me, a local angle as well, which is cool. Mm-hmm. And those trees will be evaluated over 4 years to see how the trees handle real world conditions. So it's one thing to modify the genetics of these trees and jack their growth, but are they going to be okay in the real world, or is it too much growth too fast? Will climate mess them up? All those things. That's what they mean by real world conditions. And in addition, the company has secured more than 3,000 acres of land in the southeast of the United States in Appalachia to demonstrate their new super trees. So it's a trend. It's something to watch. It's early. It's not completely proven yet, but they're working with Oregon State University and they're planting 3,000 acres in the south. Let's see what happens. I just love it. I love it like the rice story we did a few weeks ago.
This is much like the rice story. And what I liked about that is that as far as like humans go, once you develop these plants, Ralph, you really don't do anything to kind of help it do its thing. The trees grow themselves. They pull the material out of the atmosphere. And hey, that's less effort for humans, and I love doing less. That's really my specialty. But with this, I like the fact that like when I think of GMOs, and this is really what it is. It's a GMO, but it's a tree, Ralph. Like, you know, we think about corn and rice and, you know, all these other plants and potatoes that are all GMO to kind of feed our population. Ralph, it never really crossed my mind that we would GMO just everyday trees to better stand up for, you know, to our environment and to, you know, kind of what we need. That's what I like about the story is that I never really consider the flip side. Of course you GMO your food, but you know, why would you GMO just everyday trees? And they have some of the examples here of, you know, maybe the fir, flax and linseed, switchgrass, which, you know, you don't really eat those, but they could all benefit from doing just that. So this is a great story. I actually love this a lot.
Oh, yeah. And Ben, also, I'll say that because I troll the news services, the science news services and so forth, and even the general purpose news services that have technology sections that I constantly watch, I am seeing more and more and more stories about genetic modification of this, of that, and in medicine technology and human research for medicine and so on. It seems to be kind of a wave that's been happening. I'd say in the last 8 to 9 months, I've just seen it propel and propel. For a long time, for the last several years, it was artificial intelligence.
Yeah,
almost everything was dominated by that. But I'm seeing more and more. I think it's because the whole world of CRISPR and genetic modification is just gaining so much momentum and being explored and yielding great results in a wide range of areas, to your point, not just human tissue issues but it's plants that just all over the map. And so genetics modification, that's a huge monster worldwide trend to keep track of.
That was the promise of CRISPR, was that instead of needing needing an entire laboratory and years of research to edit a single gene, now CRISPR could just go in and you could super target it and change it with little to no effort. And you know, it leads to a lot of research like this. This is perfect. And you know, there's some really great videos on CRISPR if you want to check those out. I personally like Kiertzgatz. Kiertzgatz makes those little cartoons, animations, and they're very easy to follow and stuff like that. So definitely check that out, Ralph. My only concern, you know, if I have to be like a little bit of a naysayer, I am curious because, you know, when it comes to farming and maintaining soil health and, you know, everything that really farmers do as they maintain their soil, Ralph, I'm curious if a tree grows 50% faster, what does that do to the soil? Does it pull out nutrients 50% faster? Can the tree survive for that long? All things to look up, but of course, smarter people than myself are going to look into that. So,
I think, Ben, that goes back to the point that they made about the Oregon State University test. Let's get 600 trees. Let's watch them for 4 years. Let's see what the impact is. And you make a really interesting point. Perhaps they'll discover this is great, but we have to keep amending the soil because the trees are just sucking the nutrients out of the soil so fast. So that's an excellent point. And who knows, that might be part of what the research effort at Oregon State University is going to be all about.
And hey, 3,000 acres next, obviously promising enough to get another opinion on this. So this is great.
Yeah.
Story number 2, story number 3, another update, but this one is a little bit different. And and this is honestly for anyone out there who's checking out the show notes. I kind of use that as kind of the clickbait was Mayflower sails across the ocean. Like, you know, that was part of the headline that we submitted, which may sound like 300 or 400 year old news, or 500 or 600 year old news, but actually this is very, very recent.
And to be anal, it's 402 years.
There you go. Thank you.
So what we're talking about, folks, is here's the headline. IBM's artificial intelligence powered Mayflower ship crossed the Atlantic last month. And I got this from artificialintelligencenews.com. But as Ben was alluding to, this is kind of a part 2, because back in February, Ben and I talked about IBM's ambitious Mayflower project to sail an artificial intelligence guided, fully autonomous sea vessel across the Atlantic this year. And the original goal, by the way, folks, was to go from Plymouth, England to Massachusetts, which was the path of the original Mayflower ship that brought the Pilgrims to North America. We all know that, maybe. Well, I think we'd all know that from our grade school history. At any rate,
from the Peanuts, yes, of course. You may remember that.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Well, there, if nothing else, from there. So the vessel, named in honor, of course, as we were saying, the famous Mayflower that brought the Pilgrims to America, set off, and we talked about it in February, and it was, we're going to try to do it, guys. Let's see if it works. So they did try in April, but they encountered several glitches and several failed attempts. But finally, last month, the ship made it from Plymouth, England, not to Massachusetts, but to Halifax, Nova Scotia, but nonetheless, still a very significant accomplishment. And the ship uses a wind-solar hybrid propulsion system and features a range of sensors for scientific research on its journey, including acoustic, nutrient, temperature, and water and air samplers. That's the science part of it in some respects. IBM says the ship's autonomous artificial intelligence system, developed by an outfit called Marine AI in the United Kingdom, was able to navigate challenging North Atlantic Ocean conditions and even report back mechanical issues along the way. And the ship's artificial intelligence was also able to recognize, and I love this part. So the AI system was able to recognize various obstacles and objects in the water, including other ships, boats, debris, land obstacles, and even marine life. So cool. And so for me, Ben, this is one step towards a future where we'll see autonomous, where we may see, who knows, not too distant future, autonomous cargo and perhaps even autonomously managed AI-driven passenger ocean-going vessels. We'll see, but it's a very interesting development. I also see what you think about this. I was thinking about how autonomous vehicles on the wide open seas feel more sensible to me in a sense than a fully autonomous cars trying to drive around, say, in Los Angeles, crazy freeway traffic. At least at the ocean, you've got a bigger space, gotta give me space.
Yeah, and yet you still hear the stories about two ocean ships in the middle of the ocean crash into each other.
Yes, that's true.
It's crazy that there's so much room to move laterally that they still end up doing that. But okay, so I agree with you.
Great video you're showing right now.
Yeah, and the video is great. Great, kind of B-roll that we have going on there. You can see it there. But what I like about this was the part where they said they put all the sensors there for temperature, nutrient, and of course marine life. Ralph, what I'm kind of excited about is maybe, obviously this one can navigate from continent to continent. It'd be kind of cool if you had a bunch of these, and instead of waiting for scientific expeditions or maybe counting on fishermen to go out there and do this kind of thing, if you could monitor your oceans continuously with these kinds of they're essentially water drones, these kinds of boats, these kind of water drones, Ralph, you can have a much better sense of the health of the ocean in real time, instead of waiting for people to go out, get samples, come back, and then do that kind of thing. Yeah. These things are monitoring or just automated monitoring systems, and it's really, really cool.
Yeah.
And it looks cool as heck, like this kind of gull wing shape. Kind
of a catamaran-y type of thing.
Yes,
it's very cool.
For sure. It's amazing how cool you can make the machine when you don't have to worry about human comfort. So there you go. Yeah. Story number 3, and the fact that it finally made it. That's also Ralph, honestly, I'm kind of curious. What problems did they kind of run into? Because I know that they said, they ran into problems with the previous expeditions. I'm wondering what those problems were that shut the whole thing down.
I wish I could list those off. I'd need to go back and dive deeper into the articles to find out what the problems were.
well, I mean, the Atlantic Ocean, it has things like, icebergs here and there, and of course, 70-foot waves. Weather. Yeah, there's some bad stuff out there. But okay, either way, story number 3, great update. Glad it finally made it, and it went, instead of the route of Christopher Columbus, it went, was that Christopher Columbus? Yeah,
Mayflower,
Mayflower. Instead of going that route, it went the route of the Vikings to Nova Scotia. So even better.
Yes, there you go.
Good stuff. Story number 3. Story number 4, though, this was your favorite. Going into the show, and I think everyone out there, you can imagine that, one of the hardest, most polluting things. And of course, it's so dense. It's so important to our everyday lives. How are you going to turn things like planes green? Because, you can turn lawnmowers green. You can turn cars green. They're little engines, that only need so much. Jets and passenger airlines and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Ralph, how are we ever going to get a handle on that? Story number 4.
Yeah. This is for me, I just love this story on so many levels. So headline here is experimental solar tower helps to make green jet fuel. And I picked this up first from Popular Science, then Newsweek. And in just the last, 3-4 days, Ben, I've been seeing a host of news services pick up on this story because it's just so clever and intriguing. And if you have the show notes, or if you're lucky enough to be looking at our video here, you can see a picture of what we're going to talk about. So here we go. In a suburb of Madrid, Spain, a place where you get really good, consistent sun, by the way. Mm-hmm. A team of scientists from Switzerland and Germany have created a solar energy-based system that can make kerosene using sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide. And it offers a new, remarkable, and green way to make kerosene, which is the key ingredient of jet fuel. And it's also able to make other fuels as well, as we'll get into later in the story. So again, if you're able to see the picture, you see that it's an experimental 50-foot tower, and it's surrounded by an array of 169 mirrors on the ground. Why not 170? Why not make it an even number? I don't know. But it's got 169 mirrors on the ground. And here's how it works. And so there's a great deal more science behind what I'm going to give you right now. If you're interested in this, please get the show notes. Please follow those links, or just even Google this story. You'll find now many, many articles on this. But here's how it works. First, the powerful sunlight bouncing off the 169 sun tracking. So they're, guided. They follow the sun through the day, right? So the powerful sunlight bouncing off the 169 sun tracking mirrors is focused to strike a porous ceramic box at the top of the tower made from cerium. That's cerium, a rare earth element number 58. And I'll just say that I don't have a lot of additional knowledge to offer on that, but the key is it's porous, a porous ceramic box. So keep that in mind. So once the box reaches an extremely hot temperature, and that's from about 700 Celsius up to 1500 Celsius. So that would be about 1,292 up to 2,732 degrees Fahrenheit. As I understand it, based on looking at a chart published by the research team in their research paper, so once this incredible temperature is reached, all right? So You got the mirrors, they're focusing this like laser beam of concentrated light on the porous ceramic box at the top of this tower. So once these tremendous temperatures are reached, it starts, the surrounding air gets sucked into the box, okay? And once inside the box, the water and carbon dioxide atoms in the captured air split to produce hydrogen and carbon monoxide gases. Wow, okay. Next, the newly created hydrogen and carbon monoxide gases sink to the bottom of the tower, where they enter a shipping container. I know this is a multi-level thing here, but it's just, It blows my mind. The shipping container then goes to a special gas to liquid conversion facility, where the hydrogen gas and the carbon monoxide are processed in a reaction that rearranges their atoms to produce water vapor and hydrocarbons. And it's the hydrocarbons that are the ding, 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 the return on investment. And here's the final payoff. The resulting hydrocarbons can include kerosene, the key ingredient to jet fuel, but they could be diesel as well, and other fuels that are produced traditionally by refining petroleum. So this is an alternative to getting these fuels from having to use petroleum, a fossil-based fuel, of course. Right. Now, there's a reality check here to this. One of the reality checks that some of the articles talked about is, for example, to meet the entire worldwide aviation's need for kerosene would would require solar kerosene plants like the one that's in experimentation right now. They would need enough of them to cover an area of about 17,500 square miles, or roughly the size of the nation of Estonia. But to me, that's not a negative. Let's go to the southwest of our own country, where you have millions and millions of acres of kind of like nothing. You could put a bunch of these guys out there and set up the infrastructure for it. I'm not trivializing the effort here, but I don't think that size of land necessary is a barrier at all. If you break it up into chunks throughout the world, the Middle East, North Africa, our Southwest, and so on, areas of China and so on, you could easily have the land. That's not the problem. What I do wonder about, in the articles I read, Ben didn't get into it, is what would potentially, if you got this on large scale operation, had the infrastructure in place, with the resulting fuels, in this case, most important, kerosene, would it be price competitive to the petroleum-based systems and products we get now today? So, but nonetheless, wow, I just think this is so cool. So one thing I did not see was a mention of gasoline as a potential byproduct of this process. None of the articles I looked at on this mentioned gasoline, but I did some searching and found a National Geographic article, the link's embedded in the show notes, that talks about gasoline made from carbon sucked from the air. Sounds familiar, right? In specific, the fuel was made out of carbon dioxide from the air plus hydrogen. But I don't know if this solar tower could play a role in this process, and this would be a good follow-up question. But all things considered, my final takeaway is an A+ for a climate-friendly and sustainable idea that pulls global warming carbon dioxide out of the air to make green kerosene fuel for airplanes and also other fuels, diesel, etc. So A+ for the effort and the idea. I just think it was one of the most fascinating stories I've come across in the last many months.
For sure. And there's certainly a lot to kind of digest there. And Ralph, I think that if you went back in time and you told people, okay, we need, 150,000 oil wells to power the future airplane industry, shipping industry, boats, planes, cars, so on and so forth. Ralph, I'm sure that they would look back 150 years ago and they would go, that's not really feasible. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of area. That's a lot of oil and gas that we need to drill, mine, and otherwise get. Yep. Ralph, I feel like this is kind of the same thing, where it's like 17,500 square miles seems like a lot, but just like you said, take it off in chunks. Ralph, in my mind, I kind of see it like oil wells are in Texas. Sometimes you see just these random pumps in places. Hey, just set up one of these every so often. Get investors, and if they can somehow be price competitive, fingers crossed, then hey, it becomes all the more incentivized to just kind of chip away at this one tower at a time. So very,
it's just
very
amazing
cool.
It's amazing to me what we can harvest from the air.
Yeah, and if anyone thought that this feat, I'm going to throw on one little thing, and then we're going to call the show, Ralph. But just so people think, no one can think to build that big or anything like that. This is not really green tech or anything like that. But this is the publication is actually Giant Freaking Robot, which is a great website. But this is Ralph. I don't know if you heard about this in the United Arab Emirates. They're considering building a 75 mile, with an M, mile wide, skyscraper. Essentially, it'll be 1,600 feet tall, 75 miles wide, or essentially long. Lord. And you can imagine, and there are two skyscrapers that will have like a main street. So think of like a road with two buildings that just keep on going for 75 miles. UAE and Saudi Arabia is rather strange, and of course they have some mock-ups and kind of what they're proposing here. But
I see the illustration. Yeah, look at that.
The illustration helps immensely. It looks like something out of Dune. But what I'm saying is that technological feats that we may consider impossible, other people are like, well, we got the money. We can certainly attempt to do something like this. It's
oh my gosh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, so little things like this, Ralph, it's an exciting big world out there, and hey, you're finding solutions, other people are making up problems. That's just the way it kind of goes. But All of this was a lot of fun, and I definitely enjoyed story number 4. In fact, I enjoyed all the stories, Ralph. Ladies and gentlemen, computeramerica.com, and of course, Ralph Bond Wicks. Search that in Google, and of course, over in the show notes, we'll have a link to Ralph's site as well. He does a great job of keeping it all up there. His website, much more stable than ours lately. You can, of course, check that out there as well. Until next time, everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye, everyone.